So today we're talking about zero-click content. What readers are really looking for from B2B brands. So maybe let's start with how we all kind of learned how to create content, right? So most of us, I think, learned kind of classic content marketing or content creation pretty much the same way, right? We learned, you learn some SEO basics, learn how to do some keyword research, and then you write content with the intent of fulfilling that search query. Your reference points are going to be the top competing or the top ranking articles. And so that's kind of the standard you write against. And this makes sense, right? Totally rational, reasonable way to go about creating content for the internet. A lot of people still do it. It's great. But the challenge with this is it doesn't actually teach us anything about quality of content, right? So you might know how to execute upon content that has high volume search, right? But you might not actually know if it's good quality content. And so you might be thinking, but of course, my content is great quality. And, I'm sure by many standards it is, right? You might be thinking, well, I did my keyword research in Ahrefs, so I know people are searching for my content. I wrote a cute and relatable introduction, which grabs people's attention. Then I ran my article through ClearScope, so I know it has at least an A-. And then finally, I checked my article through Grammarly, and I don't have any typos. Great. So also a great process for content creation. And you might be right, technically, that it's, high ranking, you don't have typos. But the challenge is content creation quality is subjective, right? What's high quality to you might not be high quality to your reader. And maybe what you think is funny is cheesy to someone else. Or maybe you're overly focused on perfect grammar, which is great, but maybe your target audience doesn't actually care that much if you miss commas or capitalizations here and there. And the other challenge with figuring out high quality content is quality is really hard to measure, right? So you can have a blog post like here on the left that contains all the information it needs to rank high in search, right? In this example on the left, it's in the search engine results page, even has the snippet. By many accounts, very enviable spot, right? But it doesn't mean that content like that actually compels readers to take action. Doesn't mean that they're sharing it. I would wager that you would probably rather write a blog post that gets talked about and shared for years to come, like on the right side here. On the right side, we have a pretty similar type of article, right? About becoming successful or being great. On your left, right, we have this kind of the top ranking, whatever it is from, I think, a university. On the right, we have an essay from Steph Smith, formerly of The Hustle, now at A16Z. She's an indie maker, content marketer. But this post that she has on her personal site, How to Be Great, Just Be Good repeatedly. It's been read by over 100,000 people since she's published this a couple years ago. It gets shared a ton on social media. Like if you search for this on Twitter, you'll see there are tons of tweets about this, different kinds of people sharing like, I love this blog post, or people even just sharing graphics that they've created derived from the ideas in her article, right? So that's the kind of quality that's hard to measure, but something that you probably want to go after. So how do we actually break through the noise? How do we do it, right? How do we break through this noise, get seen, get heard, get shared, and ultimately make an impact? Well, spoiler alert. Your end goal here is to create zero-click content. This is content that's native to a given platform and gives a standalone thought. Clicking to learn more is additive for the consumer, not required. But also, the content is just so dang good that people will actually want to click, even though they don't need to. Sounds counterintuitive, I know, but trust me, it'll all make sense, especially as we get further along in this presentation. So how do we create zero-click content, right? How do we create the thing that people can consume one-off that's native to the platform, get some value out of that? How do we make that thing, right? It starts with the high quality content. So it starts by understanding your audience really well. In this case, doing some audience research. Audience research, not just keyword research, because keyword research will tell you what, right? It'll tell you what some of the topics are, what people might be searching for. Audience research tells you who's searching for this, maybe why they're searching for it and where, right? I mean, it's not just Google, right, where people are searching for stuff. One way to do this is you could use a tool like SparkToro to learn more about what your audience is looking for. In this example, pretend we're searching for the topic of my audience talks about B2B content. You can search for this in SparkToro and you can see some ideas like the hidden gem accounts that people are engaging with, some of the other topics they talk about. So this audience is also talking about marketing trends, email marketing, right? So this kind of gives you a picture of what this audience really cares about. But I'm not here just to shill SparkToro. You can also use something like Feedly, right? On Feedly.com, you can search for content sources by topic or by interest. So you can search for different kinds of topics here and see some of the similar types of other hubs that people are reading from, other resources, gives you a holistic picture of, okay, in this topic for your audience, what are the other things that people are reading or consuming or learning about this? You can also learn directly from the source, right? So you can learn from other, subject matter experts in your field, learn from the actual sources of influence. So I think so for instance, in the niche of B2B content, one influential person here is writer Kaylee Moore, right? So Kaylee Moore is largely known for her e-commerce writing and online retail writing. But if you consume her content directly, right, go to her Twitter, maybe subscribe to her newsletter, listen to her podcast, then you're getting a sense of the audience who's influenced by her. What are the things that they're learning about? Like, how can this helps you understand like how to get on their level, maybe use some of the shared terminology and see what's top of mind for them. Another tactic you can do is use the top ranking content to your advantage. So when you're writing a certain, blog post, you can search for what's already ranking for this, right? And kind of use that to learn maybe kind of what not to do or to kind of learn how to zig when they're zagging. So yes, you should use it to be complete and thorough in the content you're creating, but also use that competitive intel to rise above the fray. So for instance, let's say we were to Google, top ranking content about how to write high quality B2B content. Great, you'll see some articles like this, write exciting B2B content in every industry, B2B content marketing, everything to know, how to create a B2B content strategy. Okay, cool, all relevant to this stuff, right? But if you read this, you can probably pretty easily uncover some trends or missing pieces here. Something I noticed pretty quickly right off the bat is, so I'm searching for the topic of how to write high quality content. But none of these articles talked about why that's so difficult to do. Right. So that's already a missing piece. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about, like, why is it so hard to do this thing? Why am I struggling with this? That's something you can uncover as a writer. Maybe you could survey your audience. Maybe you have a real pain point that you could speak to, that a really relatable account that that people would read and feel seen in. So use some of that intel to write better content. And I would be remiss in not mentioning AI tools, but probably not what you think. So I'm going to suggest, try some of these AI tools, but be strategic about it. So I have this, it says here, use AI. No, not like that. So what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying go to Chat GPT and then have it write something for you and then copy and paste that. Of course not. No. Think of these GPT tools as your intern. Think of it as your research intern. Because it's important to remember that AI is inherently outdated. And what I mean by that is, when you think of it as your research intern, it's only able to know the content that already exists. all the stuff that's already out there. And so that inherently means it's retroactive, right? It's combing through all the things that exist. And that's actually really useful, right? Because that could help you figure out, oh my gosh, now you don't have to maybe you don't have to look up random stats anymore to support your claim. You might even be able to use a tool like ChatGPT or like Lex or Jasper to have it help you find some of that background research so that you can write better original content. So think of it like that. Another thing you can do with some of these AI tools is better ideate some of your headlines, maybe have it help you write a rough outline of what you're trying to do. So this helps me a lot when I'm trying to overcome writer's block. If I'm just like, I don't know how to structure my thoughts, what do I say? How do I do this? I might just plop into ChatGPT, like, can you help me write an outline for writing high quality B2B content? It's not perfect, right? But it at least gives you that starting point for you as the creator to be like, I would never write it like that. Or like, this outline is missing this other thing. Great, cool. It gives you a nice, draft one, version one, which you can easily take it to version two. So use it for that. Another way to create some really high quality content is to tap into emotions or incentives. So think, why might someone amplify this content? Right? Why might somebody amplify the content that I've just published? You could look up this blog post from my boss, Rand Fishkin, who will amplify this and why. This is I think one of my favorite of all time blog posts of his. He wrote a couple years ago, but he breaks down essentially what are some of I think he had like around 9 factors of why people might amplify something. I listed out some of them here. One is novelty, right? So brand new information. 2, belief reinforcement. So people are likely to amplify something if it reinforces their existing beliefs, right? The kind of content that people share and go, see, I knew it. Like tacos are better in LA than SF. Like, of course, stuff like that. Other elements might be fear, surprise, controversy, like maybe the spirit of competition, familiarity or fame. So if someone's familiar with a given person or public figure, rankings, right? Things like top 10 thin crust pizzas in my city. Right? People love hearing that kind of stuff. Tapping into someone's ego. Maybe we could do like a quiz or the kind of content that's like the top performers do this thing. Do you? You click that, right? You go like, what is that? What is the thing that top performers are doing? And then finally, last one I have here is counterintuition. What runs counter to people's intuition? What runs counter to what is common sense? And then I think I have one more slide here. Oh, here's my last one. Your unique value proposition. So this is really important. I kind of saved this best one for last. So when you think about your unique value proposition, think about, why are you saying this? You. What is special about your message? And why are you saying it instead of your competitor, instead of somebody else? So to uncover the answer to this question, you might want to be thinking about what's unique about your data, like the data that you have access to, unique about your skills, your personal skills, your history, or your experience. All these things, like what makes your perspective unique and yours? And when you tap into that, that could be what's worthy of amplification. I also kind of think about it as in this like sort of Venn diagram I have here. It's that kind of intersection of what your audience wants, your topic, right? What that topic is, and what makes you uniquely qualified to write about this thing, right? So, so in my case, I'm a content marketer. If I'm going to write something about how to create high quality content, let's just stick with that example. How to write high quality B2B content. I would be thinking about like, well, what's unique about me, right? So in my experience, what have I done people probably have similar experiences as me. I'm not saying I'm super, super unique. We all have our unique experiences, right? So this could be like, all right, so part of my unique experience is, I don't actually have classic content marketing experience. I came into content marketing originally by way of journalism. So I learned to write online by way of journalism. That's kind of what's unique to me. So that kind of helps me think through how to write high quality content, because just kind of inherently, I don't think about this as, oh, high quality means keywords or high volume keywords. I think about it as, well, high quality to me as a former journalist means original reporting. It means getting original quotes, getting an original point of view, sourcing quotes from industry experts. Like those are things that to me are part of high quality content. They're not the only ingredients, right? But those are things that I think a lot of people would probably agree with, but it's a way that I've kind of arrived at that conclusion by way of my own unique experience. So that could be an angle for me to write about. So hope that helps. All right. Don't remember what slide I have next, so wish me luck here. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the high quality content, the importance of zero-click content, but now let's talk about some 3 frameworks to try, right? So I've talked kind of like about zero-click, but haven't given you some specific examples yet. So let's do that here. All right. So the first tactic here, one way to create zero-click content, so content that people don't really need to click on, but they'd still get some standalone value out of it, is to give away the punchline, right? Give away the punchline to your blog post or to that podcast episode. In my example here, sometime last year, I wrote this blog post about the importance of audience personas. Like, this is why you need to think beyond buyer personas and think more holistically about your audience. And it sort of, as I wrote the blog post, I just kind of like had it lead up into this joke of this fake buyer persona template. And it's all like, I use myself as an example, all random, weird, silly stats, or not stats, but descriptors. And the way that I promoted this blog post was I just posted the screenshot of my silly fake buyer persona template. And I said, made this template, feel free to steal it, right? And this was also the punchline that I used it in email promo for the webinar version of this blog post. So one, the tweet itself got over 500 likes, and then it became our most clicked on email promo in 2022. And it led to over 900 webinar registrants, right? So this worked out really, really well. I think, we kind of marketers were kind of told or taught to tease people with the content and not give it all away. But in this case, by giving it away, this kind of standalone joke, it ended up getting more attention, right? Getting better results. So that worked out well. Tactic number 2, summarize the heart of your idea. So basically just take that blog post and think about how can you distill that into one tweet or like one visual, or a Twitter thread or a LinkedIn post, whatever your poison is. So someone who's really good at this is Wes Kao, the co-founder of Maven. She has this great blog post on the brand versus performance marketing spectrum. And so she has like a full blog post about it, but she also has this visual that shows on this spectrum where different kinds of marketing campaigns kind of fit in. So it makes sense as a standalone graphic. This gets shared, this has been reshared a couple of times. And so in essence, to do this, you can share an outline, items in a list, or just that standalone thought. So remember, clicking should be optional. And when you do this really well, you can probably do this multiple times with one piece of content. So in the brand versus performance marketing spectrum, there's the screenshot of it or the visual that you could share. Other ideas would be just talking about what it's like to work on the brand marketing spectrum, that side of it. So a lot of different ways you can kind of go about taking standalone ideas from one source piece of content. All right, last one here is post a defensible hot take. So this works really well for long form content that requires a lot of context. So Steph Smith is really good at this, right? She'll post something that seems like a hot take. And I say seems like a hot take in that typically a hot take is like a half-baked idea, right? But in her case, it's usually part of a much longer discussion that has a lot of nuance. So she has like this viral tweet. I want to say it has like over 10,000 likes about the 40-hour work week. And then she just says, and by the way, I have a podcast episode where I talk more about this. So it's a way to show like, yeah, I have a strong point of view here, but also I can back this up. So an important thing here is to don't be salacious just for the sake of being salacious. And in her case, you add the link after you get some engagement on the social post, and then defend your claim, right? If you're gonna say something that seems like a really strong point of view, or that is a strong point of view, you want to make sure that you can actually back it up, right? Okay, I just want to address a question here. Emily asked, when you say zero click or clicking is optional, do you mean clicking on the actual link to the content or clicking on links within the content? I think what I mean is clicking on the actual link to the content. So in the case of that buyer personas / audience personas blog post that I did, it's zero click in the sense of, hey, look at my crappy like buyer persona template. That's a joke. You as a marketer scrolling by your feed could see it and go like, oh, haha, that's funny. And you could keep scrolling and you would still get the essence of the joke, which is that buyer personas are often reductive, not helpful, not very descriptive for all the things that you actually need to know about your customer. And people who were interested could go, oh, I want to learn more about this. Oh, she has a blog post. Oh, I'm going to read that. Right. So you could probably see how clicking was optional. Like you could still laugh at the joke or the punchline without really needing to read the blog post. But hopefully people were, compelled to read it. I hope that helps. All right. I'm going to get through a couple more slides and I'll get to Stacy's question next. So how do we measure success, right? How do we measure success of zero click content, of high quality content, right? We've talked about some of the challenges of how it's really hard to measure, right? It's really hard to measure quality. But let's try to think about some of these as KPIs, right? So you could think about the engagement of zero click content, right? So you could look at on social, likes, comments, reshares, or if it's email where you're doing some standalone content, like in an email newsletter, you could look at opens, replies, subscriber growth, all pretty traditional marketing metrics. You could also look at quality of discussions, right? So you can look at the types of comments that you're getting on this content, types of questions that you're getting from people. You could be, you can't measure it perfectly, but you could be kind of tracking off-platform mentions, like all the times either your content from LinkedIn gets shared on Twitter, for instance, or times when people reach out to you and go like, oh, like I heard about your blog post, talked about it in this meeting. That's an off-platform sort of mention. You could think about live discussions, like look at live discussions as a measure of success, kind of like this one, right? So something I'm kind of looking out for is, are you all kind of active in the chat? Like maybe not everybody, right? But are people interacting in the chat? Are people asking questions, adding on their ideas? And I've been keeping an eye on this, and I've been seeing some, awesome input from like Drew and Michelle. We have a couple questions from Stacy and Esmond. So these are things that I'm looking at, and these are things that definitely matter to me, especially as a content creator. Like this gives me clues as to, oh, what's unclear? Maybe I said something that just wasn't very clear to people. Or maybe there's another idea here that merits a longer blog post. Like that's great. That gives me a lot of insight into how I can continue to make this better, or even just whether this even resonates with you all. So quality of discussions really matters a lot. You could also think about whether the quality of content, right? If the content inspires further content or new programs. So a little bit of what I just alluded to, like, can any of the discussions here kind of give way to additional blog posts that I would write? In the case of SparkToro, we have our monthly office hours, our webinar series, which sort of became a springboard to our virtual summit last fall called Spark Together. So the monthly or so office hours kind of created this foundation for us to have a really successful virtual summit. Like those are definitely KPIs to me. You could also think about, I think this is my last slide on this. Think about whether the content meets 2 or more business goals. So think about which of your content pieces serves as double duty. So in this example here, I have a case study, right? A case study with one of our amazing clients, Foundation Inc. This is Ross Simmons' content marketing, digital marketing agency. So we have a case study with them because they're a SparkToro client. They the case study, of course, it brags about Foundation and how resourceful and awesome they are, but it also walks you through how to do some of their tactics. So it's also a tutorial for customers. And then finally, it's sales collateral, right? So our hope is that people will see this and go, ooh, I want to be a SparkToro customer. I'm going to convert. So that's a piece of content that, it has some SEO juice for us, serves as a customer sort of nurture campaign, and it converts people to become customers. So serves triple duty, I would say. So you could think about this for yourself too. If your content marketing serves the goals of demand generation as well, or if it also helps your events team or product marketing, customer retention, right? So you could think about how your content is serving multiple functions. And so maybe I'll wrap up with this. There are some counterintuitive outcomes in zero-click content, right? You might have, this is what was counterintuitive to me. I had this little buyer persona joke template that, I'll be honest, took me like 2 hours to make, right? It was a very silly joke that I was committed to, wanted to make it right. That it led to a longer, like 2,000 word blog post where I defended my claim. And it became the opportunity to present to over 700 people at MozCon last year. And so I call this out to say that's sort of the counterintuitive beauty of zero-click content. Because when you're optimizing or trying to create content that is high quality, that just gets people to understand or feel seen, or that just is meant to resonate with people, you might end up getting even more impressions. Like when you're trying really hard to focus on that resonance, right? You're trying to focus on getting people to feel seen. What you actually might end up accomplishing is getting a lot more reach, right? You might end up opening up more doors for yourself. So try it. Try being very generous with your insights, not being afraid to just give away the summary, give away the punchline, and then trust that your audience will find you. They will eventually click. They will eventually convert, all those good things. Thank you. To learn more about SparkToro, check us out at sparktoro.com. You can do your audience research, find your audience's sources of influence so that you can do better marketing. And if you want to learn more from me, my personal site is amandanat.com. You can check out my newsletter and get on the wait list if you want to for my next cohort of Content Marketing 201.